Hello, welcome back to Algebra 1. We're going to continue getting some practice with subtracting real numbers. The problems will get a little bit more complex here, but not too bad. What if you had, inside of parentheses, 15 minus 25, and then outside you had a minus and another set of parentheses, 7 minus 10. Now, how do you think we handle this? Now, you have to start applying lots of things that you've learned here. Okay, first of all, you know that when you have parentheses, you really always need to do what's inside the parentheses first. That's the order of operations we talked about. So let's go ahead and do the 15 minus 25, and we'll do the 7 minus 10, and then we'll mess around with this subtraction much later. So what is 15 minus 25? 15 minus 25. Now, we've been doing it all along as writing it as 15 plus a negative 25, but now we're going to start to get rid of our training wheels a little bit. Inside of this first thing, what do you think it's going to be? 15 minus 25 is the same thing as 15 plus a negative 25. So we're adding positive negative, right? So what you do is you subtract them as usual. So 25 minus 15 is going to give you 10, and the sign is going to go with the larger absolute value. So really, this is a positive number, and this is really a negative number, the negative 25. So the answer here is going to be negative. So another way of looking at subtraction is anytime you see subtraction, you always subtract the numbers. Always. And then you just stick the sign of the larger absolute value on. And that's kind of what we've been doing the whole time. Now over here, we're going to have inside of here another subtraction. Now you can write it as adding a negative 10, 7 plus a negative 10, but another way to think about it is, okay, this is subtraction. So even though it's 7 minus 10, that's a little bit weird, we're going to do the subtraction with the larger number first. So 10 minus 7 is going to give me a 3, and the sign is going to go with the larger absolute value, which is this is a positive 7, this is really a negative 10 here. So you're adding 7 plus a negative 10, and so the negative of the 10 is going to stick with the answer. All right, now what do we do? So here we have negative 10, but we have these two negative signs sitting right next to each other. Remember, negative with a negative right next to it makes positive. So now we have negative 10 plus 3, and we handle this as usual. We just subtract them because they're opposite signs or they're different signs. 10 minus 3 is 7, and the sign of the answer is going to go with the larger absolute value, which in this case is 10. So because this is a larger absolute value, it's going to stick on the answer. So make sure you understand that. There's a lot of little details here. You could rewrite this as 15 plus a negative 25. You could write this as 7 plus a negative 10. I'm not doing that here because as you get more experience with algebra, you kind of need to start looking at these and knowing how to apply the answer. So as we go through the problems here, you'll get some experience with that. What if we had 42 minus 50, and then we subtract from that 17 minus 7? All right. So you could again write this as 42 plus a negative 50, but another way to do it is just recognize this is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract them. I'm going to do the bigger minus the smaller. So 50 minus 42 is going to be 8, but the sign of it has to go with the larger absolute value. This is a positive 42, this is a negative 50. So this is going to be negative because it goes with the larger absolute value. This negative sign stays the same. Now inside here, this is very simple. 17 minus 7, you know, is positive 10. Right? So what you end up having is, if you could drop the parentheses now to make it a little easier to read, negative 8 minus 10. Now how do you handle that? Well, you're starting with a negative number and you're subtracting from it another number. So you're going even deeper in the hole. You could write this as addition. This could be negative 8 plus a negative 10. Either way you want to think about it, you're going to add these numbers together and get 18, and it's going to be a negative because the sign is always, when you have a negative plus another negative number, the answer is going to be always negative. So, or you can think of it in terms of subtraction. Starting negative and going even more negative means I'm going to have a deeper negative number, negative 18. All right, so let's work on something a little bit different. What if we have 4 minus 5 plus 8 minus 11 plus 10. How do we handle this? Well, it's all addition and subtraction. There's no parentheses. So when you have a lot of addition and subtraction like this in our line, you just work left to right. A lot of students will start doing too many things at once and get the wrong answer. But what you really need to do is work left to right. So the first thing you encounter is 4 minus 5. How do you do 4 minus 5? Well, you could write it as 4 plus a negative 5. You could rewrite it if you want to, 4 plus a negative 5, but we've got a little bit of experience now, and we recognize that this is subtraction. So even though it's 4 minus 5, we're going to subtract these numbers, bigger minus smaller. So the 5 minus 4 is going to give you 1, and the sign of it is going to be negative because negative 5 is the larger absolute value. So this will be negative 1, and we're going to write the rest of the problem down. So we're going to do one little step at a time. Now we're going to focus on the negative 1 plus 8. So you're adding a negative to a positive, so you subtract, and you're going to get 8 minus 1 is 7, and the sign is going to be positive because the larger absolute value of what I was adding together. So essentially, this is giving you that, and this is giving you this. Now we're going to continue copying the problem down. We have the minus 11 plus 10. Now we need to work on these two guys. What is going to be 7 minus 11? Again, you could write it as 7 plus a negative 11. That's totally fine. But as we grow up a little bit here, we're going to recognize this is subtraction, so all we're going to do is take 11 minus 7. 11 minus 7 is going to give me 4, and the sign of it's going to be negative because this is the larger absolute value, okay, compared to that. And so then you will have the plus 10 here. So the final thing you have to work on is negative 4 plus 10. You're adding opposite, so you end up subtracting. 10 minus 4 is 6, and the answer is going to be positive because the 10 has the larger absolute value. So the answer to all of that is 6. Now, if you start doing things in reverse order, you can get yourself really, really confused. The best thing to do is work left to right, and then just moving yourself along down the line until there's nothing else to do, and then you got the final answer. Do a couple of additional things really quickly here. This is an interesting problem. What if you had something like 7 plus y minus parentheses 7 minus y minus y. So this is basically an exercise in trying to simplify this. How do you simplify this? Well, you want to do what's inside the parentheses first, but inside of here you have 7 minus y. You can't really do that because you don't know what y is. You can't simplify it any further, but you do have this negative sign out here, and we said when you have a negative sign in a parentheses, it kind of applies itself to every term on the inside. So that is something we can do. So starting from the beginning, we have 7 plus y, and then this negative will apply itself to the 7, giving you negative 7, and then this negative will apply itself to negative y. Negative with a negative right next to it is going to give you positive y. So that takes care of the parentheses, and then this negative y is what's just hanging around at the end of the problem. So now we look at this and see what we have. Now let me rewrite this a little bit. You don't have to rewrite it, but it can make things a little bit easier to understand. So let's say you have the first 7 here, and then you have this negative 7. So I'm going to write that next as negative 7. And then I have this y from right here. So I'm writing that right there. And then I have plus this y minus that one. So I have plus y minus y. All I've done is rewrite the terms, because when you add things together, they can be in any order, right? The reason I did that is because you know that 7 minus 7 is 0. And you also know that y minus y is 0. So all that stuff goes away. So really the answer is going to be only thing left, which is y. So you would never see that. You would never, even me, I mean, I've done lots and lots of algebra. I really can't look at this and say, oh yeah, the answer is going to be y. I can't do that. I have to put the stuff in there, notice what I have, add things together, and then I see what the answer is. So you're never going to be expected to just know the answer. You have to work through it. All right, so let's do another one over here. This is our last problem. What if we have s minus parentheses negative 3, and then we have minus bracket s plus negative 3, close bracket, minus 3. Okay, so now we want to simplify that. Again, we want to do what's inside of the bracket here, but we can't. S plus negative 3, you can't do anything more with that. But we have a negative sign here, and that can be applied here. And also, notice we have a negative sitting right next to another negative. So there's lots of things we can actually do. First, let's fix this, that the negatives together make a positive. So over here on the left, it'll be s plus 3. That takes care of the first part of the problem. Then, this negative will be applied to this s, giving you negative s, and then this negative will be applied to negative 3, but the two negatives together, negative of a negative, will give you positive 3, and then this guy at the end is just going to be sitting around with negative 3. All right, so let's look at what we have. The 3 minus 3 at the end is just going to give you 0, okay? And then I'm not going to really rewrite it, but notice that you have an s here from there, and you have a negative s there. So what do you think is going to happen? Negative s plus the negative s, or s minus s, that's going to give you 0 also. So if you really wanted to rewrite it, you could say this is going to be s minus s plus 3. So that basically gives you 0. So the answer is going to give you 3. That's all that's left over. So these little problems here we did at the end, it's just an interesting exercise. When you put this stuff in here and you get the signs of what's left over, this happens to subtract away to 0, and this term happens to subtract with this term away to give you 0. And so all you're really left with that's not 0 is the positive 3. And that's the answer here. So we've gotten a lot of practice with subtracting real numbers. You need to make sure that you understand how to do these problems, solve them yourself, grab a sheet of paper, solve them yourself, and then follow me on to the next lesson where we're going to learn about a new topic in algebra.